day my mom looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're the black sheep of this family." Something inside me didn't break. It snapped into place. And instead of crying, instead of begging her to take it back like I used to, I just smiled. I smiled and said, "Perfect. Then stop using me like I belong here." And the look on her face, I'll never forget it. It was like for the first time in her life, she realized she might have pushed me too far. So tell me honestly, was I wrong for finally choosing myself after everything they put me through? Or should I have kept playing the role they forced on me? I guess to really understand how it got to that point, I have to go back. Because no one just wakes up one day and decides to cut off their family. It builds, slowly, quietly, like cracks in glass that you don't notice, until the whole thing shatters. I grew up in what looked like a normal family from the outside. 2 parents, 3 kids, a decent house, and enough money to never worry about food or bills. My older brother, Daniel, was the golden child. Straight A's, captain of the football team, charming, confident, basically everything my parents ever wanted. My younger sister, Layla, was the princess, sensitive, artistic, and constantly praised for her pure heart. And then there was me. I was the difficult one. At least that's what they called me. I wasn't failing in school. I wasn't getting into trouble, I just didn't fit their expectations. I asked questions. I challenged things. I didn't blindly agree with everything my parents said, and for some reason, that made me the problem. I remember being about 10 years old when it first really hit me. Daniel had just gotten an award at school, and my parents threw this big dinner for him. Relatives came over, everyone was celebrating, and I was genuinely happy for him. I even made him a handmade card, but when I tried to give it to him, my mom barely looked at it and said, "That's nice. Now go help in the kitchen instead of standing around." That was the first time I realized. My effort didn't matter. As I got older, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Daniel messed up? He's just under pressure. Layla cried? She's sensitive. Be gentle. I spoke up about something unfair. Why are you always so negative? And here's the part that really messed with my head. I started believing them. I thought maybe I really was the problem. Maybe I was too much, too opinionated, too emotional, too different. So I tried to change. I tried being quieter, more agreeable. I helped around the house more, got good grades, stayed out of trouble. I even stopped arguing when they blamed me for things I didn't do. I thought if I just became easier to love, they would finally see me. But it never worked, because the truth is, they had already decided who I was. The black sheep. By the time I was in my late teens, the dynamic had shifted in another way. I became the one everyone relied on, but never appreciated. Need someone to pick Layla up from school? Me need help with Daniel's college applications? Me. Need someone to run errands, handle chores, fix problems? Me. And every time I said yes, I thought maybe this time they'd notice. Maybe this time they'd say thank you. Maybe this time I'd feel like I belonged. But instead, it just became expected. Not appreciated, expected. Then came the money. When I got my first job, I was so proud. It wasn't anything fancy, just a part-time position at a small office. But it was mine. My effort, my independence. I remember bringing my first paycheck home, smiling like an idiot, thinking my parents would be proud. My mom looked at it and said, "Good. You can start contributing now." At first, I thought she meant small things, helping with groceries, maybe paying for my own stuff. But no, it quickly turned into something else. They started borrowing money, small amounts at first, then bigger ones. And every time I hesitated, my mom would say things like, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you act?" So I gave in, again and again. And here's the worst part. They never paid me back. By the time I was 23, I had basically become their unofficial financial backup plan. Daniel had dropped out of college, something they somehow blamed on stress, and my parents were supporting him completely. Layla wanted to pursue art, which meant more expenses. And guess who they turned to when things got tight? Me, the black sheep, the one who was never good enough, but somehow always good enough to fix their problems. I started feeling like I wasn't a person in that house. I was a resource, an ATM, a problem solver, something to use, and still I stayed, because a part of me kept hoping. Maybe one day they'd see me differently. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a regular evening, nothing dramatic. I had just come home from work, exhausted, and I found my mom and Daniel arguing in the living room. Apparently, He had gotten into some kind of trouble again, something about money he owed someone. And before I could even process what was happening, my mom turned to me and said, "You need to help him." Not asked, told. I felt this wave of frustration rise up in my chest. "Why is it always me?" I asked. And that's when she said it. "You're the black sheep of this family. The least you can do is make yourself useful." Silence. For a second, I just stood there staring at her, because even though I had felt it my whole life, hearing it out loud was different. It made everything real, and something inside me just shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just smiled. And I said, "Perfect. Then stop using me like I belong here." You could hear a pin drop. Daniel looked shocked. My mom looked offended, like I had just crossed some unforgivable line. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. That night, I went to my room and sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone was buzzing with messages from my mom, telling me I was being selfish, ungrateful, dramatic. But all I could think was, what if I just stopped? What if I stopped being the one who fixes everything? What if I stopped giving them access to me? What if I finally chose myself? So that's the situation I was in. Years of being treated like I didn't belong, but still being expected to carry everyone else's weight. And now I had a choice. I could go back to being the person they wanted me to be, or I could walk away and risk losing my family completely. Before I tell you what I did next, I want you to pause and really think about it. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you stay and keep the peace? Or would you finally draw the line? Because I chose to draw the line. The next morning I woke up earlier than usual, not because I had to, but because I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, but for the first time, it wasn't with anxiety. It was with clarity. I opened my bank account and looked at the numbers. Years of hard work, and way less than there should have been, because so much of it had gone to them. That was the moment I made my decision. I wasn't going to give them another cent. Not a single one. Over the next few weeks, I started making quiet moves. I opened a new bank account they didn't know about. I stopped sharing my financial details. I began saving aggressively. And most importantly, I started saying no. At first, they didn't take it seriously. "Can you transfer some money? It's urgent." No. That was it. No explanation. No apology. And the reactions? Exactly what you'd expect. "You've changed. You're being selfish." Family helps each other. But I didn't budge. Then things escalated. One evening, my mom confronted me again, this time angrier than ever. She started listing everything they had ever done for me. Every sacrifice. Every expense, every moment, like I owed them a lifetime of repayment. And for the first time, I interrupted her. "I didn't ask to be born," I said quietly. "You chose to have me. That doesn't mean you get to use me forever." That hit her hard. I could see it in her eyes. But instead of reflecting, she doubled down. "Fine," she snapped. "If that's how you feel, maybe you shouldn't be part of this family at all." And I just nodded. Maybe I shouldn't. Within a month, I moved out. It wasn't some dramatic exit. No yelling, no big scene. Just a quiet packing of my things, a small apartment, and a door closing behind me. And you know what? It was terrifying, but it was also freeing. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. The aftermath wasn't easy. My family tried reaching out, at first to guilt me, then to argue, then to pretend nothing had happened. But I kept my distance, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. And slowly, something amazing happened. I started building a life that actually felt like mine. I made friends who valued me. I kept my money and used it for things I wanted. I stopped feeling like I had to earn my place in someone's life. And as for my family, they eventually stopped calling. Not because they understood, but because they realized they couldn't control me anymore. And honestly, they told me everything I needed to know. So was I wrong? Maybe some people would say yes. That family is everything. That I should have been more patient, more forgiving. But here's what I've learned. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect. It's about love that doesn't come with conditions. And if someone only values you when you're useful, they don't actually value you. So yeah, I was the black sheep. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud of it. If you made it this far, I really want to hear your thoughts. Was I justified, or do you think I went too far? Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your opinion in the comments below. I read as many as I can. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.